Back in September 2023, I launched a video explaining how I fell in love with Persona 4 Golden and 5 Royal despite some of the flaws in gameplay and story elements. In this video, I'm going to expand on that slightly before talking about one of the Persona 5 spin-off games, Tactica. I'm not going to go in depth over 4 Golden and 5 Royal. If you haven't seen that video already, I suggest you go watch that first before continuing. And if you're still here, let's continue. With Royal, not much has changed, but before it was removed from Game Pass in October 2023, I managed to complete one more playthrough of it. In this playthrough, I got all the characters up to level 99 and even managed to fight and beat one of the secret bosses, Jose. It was a little bit underwhelming and might be because I was over leveled for it, or it could be that 4 teenagers were beating up a small boy. What I didn't realise until this playthrough though is that there was yet another secret boss in Justine and Carolyn before they become Lavenza. I discovered it, gave it a go and got really close to beating them, but in the end failed at the last hurdle. The gimmick of this fight is that they will heal each other and you have to match personas with them, so if they're strong in electricity for example, you have to use wind as their weakness. The thing is that when you eventually get them down to low health, you need to beat them both in one turn or they'll revive each other with 4,000 health, and that just throws the balance off. You also only have a certain amount of turns before they insta-kill you. Despite this, I don't feel this boss is as unfair as the Lavenza fight, which I also retried and didn't even get close to beating. The twins battle did reward me for getting close though, and I feel like it's something I could do in a playthrough in the distant future. The only other thing I wanted to do was to beat the Reaper for the achievement, and technically I did this twice. I say technically because on very easy mode you get revived in battle once if you happen to get knocked out, and yeah, this happened in both battles. The insta-death move that the Reaper hits got me each time and I didn't learn how to defend against it. I have the achievement, and aside from the one that didn't trigger for some reason, I now have them all on my save file. But I feel I should beat this one without relying on resurrection, which if you remember in my original video, I hate. I know, the irony is not lost on me. I also ended up dating Makoto after failing to date Takemi once again. Goth Doctor will be mine one day. Makoto though is no consolation. I had her as my second in command in battle and made her really strong. And the moments together between her and Joker are really sweet. Better than Ann in my opinion. Story wise, I'm still not sold on Royal's ending, and most of my opinions on the game as a whole remain the same from my first video. The TLDR is that I love this game, its soundtrack, and I highly recommend it. Whereas my opinion on Royal may not have changed, Golden, well, let's get into this. In my previous video I got a comment saying that I missed out a lot by not doing Marie's story, but that I may not like it given how I feel about Lavenza. This raised alarm bells, but I went for it anyway. I got to level 10 with Marie and Margaret thinking I'd get Marie's story and the true ending, including the secret battle with Margaret. Well, I got 2 out of 3 of those anyway. Before Persona Golden was removed from Game Pass in January 2024, I gave it another playthrough. This time though, on easy, so clearly I'm getting more confident. Before I continue, spoiler warning for Persona 4 Golden. On the ski trip, you and one of your friends end up getting lost in a cabin after Marie goes missing weeks before. In the cabin, you and the rest of your friends who find you end up going through the TV into a desolate world where Marie is hiding away, waiting to be destroyed after the world collapses in on itself. This world, the Hollow Forest, takes away all of your items, weapons, accessories, armor and money, and each fight you participate halves your SP. I love this, and it makes the dungeon the most interesting to play, and the music is haunting throughout. When you find Marie, she tells you that she is the god Kasumi no Akami, who has absorbed all of the fog from the Shadow World and is holding back Izanami, who threatens the real world. After defeating Izanami, you take Marie back to the real world to live as a real person. Story wise, it's a bit samey, yet another god threatening the world, but I love Marie's character work, and the unique nature of the dungeon makes this my new favourite, to the point where any future playthrough I do will have to include this from now on. With Margaret, I discovered after the fact that I had to do more than just get her to level 10 social link, but at least she gave me a kiss before I left Inaba, so that was worth it. Then there's the true ending where you discover the gas attendant is the true culprit, yet another godlike being posing as human. How many of there are there in Inaba? There's one final dungeon which looks good but is nothing special, and then a final boss which again wasn't too difficult given my high level. The secret ending though, set a year later from the events of Persona 4 Golden, is well worth a watch. In just a year, characters have grown and developed, and their new looks are really great. Kanji specifically is unrecognizable. I didn't have a go at the Reaper again because the only time I got to face him was in Yukiko's castle, and I was nowhere near strong enough to take it on. And I still didn't get level 10 on the Hermit or Adachi. As far as dating is concerned, I decided to date Yukiko on this playthrough, and I don't regret it. I do feel though that the game really wants you to date Rise. It doesn't feel as flexible as Persona 5. Overall, I love Persona 4 Golden even more now, and you should go out of your way to get the Golden ending, including Marie's dungeon. 5 is still better in my opinion, but it's a much closer contest now. Shortly after Persona 5 Royal was removed from Game Pass, Persona 5 Tactica came onto it. For full context, I've put about 40 hours into the game and unlocked every achievement. The only thing I haven't yet done is the DLC. Tactica is a very different type of game. It's set on an isometric board and is a turn-based strategy game where you and your party travel across the board to attack enemies. The persona system is a lot more simple. You link one persona to each party member to be equipped alongside their base persona or passive abilities. On the positive, based on my previous criticisms, each ability has a logo showing what they are, making for a much more user-friendly experience. Although the caveat to this is that elemental weaknesses aren't really a thing. Instead, a weakness is determined by an enemy not being in cover. The only difference between elemental attacks is the status ailment that it may afflict. You can also pick anyone in your team and even omit Joker if you want to. The game encourages you to chop and change your team, and I did for the most part, though I found myself gravitating towards Haru, who's an absolute powerhouse with a weapon, though less mobile, and Morgana, who is easily the most mobile. You can also have Joker die and it won't be a game over. There's a skill tree too, where you use GP earned in bonus missions and story cutscenes to unlock new abilities. I quite like the gameplay style, but it's far removed and less sophisticated to what you're used to in the previous turn-based combat RPG. I completed it, but I found filling the companion the worst part by a long way, mainly because there's not many ways to make money, and so a lot of grinding was needed. As well as this, when you fuse personas with Lavenza, there's a chance the fusion goes wrong, and this happened during one of the more expensive fusions I did. It was very frustrating. Lavenza serves in the Velvet Room once again, this time without Igor. It also takes the shape of a blacksmith and then a full-on steam train, which I love. Lavenza looks adorable in a leather apron and welder's mask. That though is the only real positive I have on looks, because I really don't like the art style. It's something I got used to over time, but it's not something I personally like. The music too isn't as good as Royal. To be fair, that's a really high bar, and I do like a lot of tracks, but none of them are on the level of Rivers in the Desert or Life Will Change. The sound design on the other hand is awful. With the default settings you won't be able to hear a lot of the dialogue, so adjust accordingly. The story too is stripped down. Spoiler alert for the rest of Tactica. Set after the events of Persona 5 but before Joker leaves, during a news broadcast about a missing politician, the world freezes and the Phantom Thieves are transported to a world ruled by cruel Mistress Marie. She immediately hypnotizes all the Phantom Thieves bar Joker and Morgana, who are about to be defeated when they're saved by Irina, a freedom fighter. The three of them save the rest of the Phantom Thieves, locate and rescue the missing politician Toshiro, who turns out to be Marie's fiancé in the real world. The Phantom Thieves defeat Marie and move on to the next world. Each of the next two worlds features a villain linked to Toshiro in the real world, who is oppressing the population in this world, before the fourth and final world is revealed to be ruled by Samael, another godlike figure. After defeating him, the Phantom Thieves and Toshiro return to the real world while Irina fades away. The gameplay is simple, the story is simple, but at times it feels like both are trying to be deeper than they are. Toshiro being the focus of the story is weird because it almost makes the Phantom Thieves feel like afterthoughts. The only real time that I feel like there's some characterization for them is a really fun optional dialogue where Joker imagines marrying each member of the Phantom Thieves. Otherwise, this story is about Toshiro and Irina, who ends up being a representation of Eri, Toshiro's childhood friend who helped him rebel against authority until she was pushed in front of a train by a teacher they stood up against. This moment was shocking. Irina representing his dead friend really hits hard, and when Irina becomes Toshiro's persona, it's a really cool moment. Except she somehow survived being pushed in front of a train, so it immediately loses half of its impact. It's not a resurrection per se, but it's heavily implied that she died, and I was disappointed. That makes me sound like a sociopath, doesn't it? In the post-credits, Eri, using a walking stick, finds Toshiro, who, after revealing the corruption of his father and fiancée after changing his heart, is attempting to start his political career again. It's quite a nice moment and a fitting finale. Persona 5 Tactica has no alternate endings, no dating options, and is very linear. The story and Persona Fusion is stripped down and the story is simple but effective. Bear in mind this is the third Persona game I've played. I feel this is the weakest one so far. However, it's not a bad game. It's also really easy too. In my first playthrough I played on very easy and didn't use a single heal ability, so start on medium. It's not too difficult, but it will require you to use some tactics even on a basic level. Tactica is a good distraction which I put about 40 hours into and got all the achievements on at least before 3 Reload comes out. I recommend it, but it is nowhere near the experience that a full-blown Persona game is. Thank you for watching this video. If you like what you see, please give this video a like and share it on social media. Maybe leave a comment below about what you thought of this video. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe for more content. If you'd like to support me in other ways, you can buy merchandise at bradleyj.tmail.com, where you can buy t-shirts, tote bags and more. Or you can become a Patreon at www.patreon.com/BradleyJVoices for just £1 a month. And that will do it for Persona, or at least until I've played through 3 Reload a few times, and I'll probably do yet another video about that game. For now though, thank you very much for watching.